Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. In this battle, we've got Ninjahund leading the Greenskins to battle against TlaxtlanSoothsayer's Empire. Ninjahund streams Total War on a near daily basis, and often tries some hilarious builds, such as the one you'll see here. For a constant flow of great multiplayer action, you really should check him out on Twitch. I've left the link in the description below to his channel. Now, the Greenskins are led by a Night Goblin war boss on Squigback, who has a potion of foolhardiness, a potion of toughness, stand your ground, and wah. A Night Goblin shaman comes in with sneaky stealin', sneaky stabbin', and itchy nuisance, while the two Goblin big bosses are on Spiderback with no potions or extra abilities. The army itself consists of 4 units of Savage Orcs, 4 units of Savage Orc Biggins, and 8 units of Squigherd, 2 ranked up to rank 2, the rest ranked up to rank 1. That's a ton of armor-piercing and anti-infantry in there, with anti-large coming from the Savage Orc Biggins, and a general nonchalance towards armor-piercing from the enemy because of damage negation. There's also a fair amount of poison support to help out in key engagements. The Empire is led by a General of the Empire in the air with Foe Seeker, a Potion of Toughness, and Blood Roar. A Jade Wizard comes in to support with Life Bloom, Awakening of the Wood, Earthblood, and Arcane Conduit, while the army consists of 2 units of Spearmen to help counter enemy cavalry, a unit of Flagellants, and 4 units of armor-piercing, anti-infantry greatswords. The Silver Bullets will provide some ranged armor-piercing support, while the Empire Knights and Zintler's Reichsguard will provide some anti-infantry support in the form of fast-moving cavalry for flanking maneuvers. Finally, there's the Steam Tank, bringing in the pain from a distance and when in melee. Alright, we're going to talk about deployment real quick, and it's relatively simple from the Greenskins and the Empire as well, actually. So let's start with the Greenskins real quick. We've got the front line Savage Orcs on either flank, and then in the center we've got the Savage Orc Biggins forming up the front line. Sort of stronger in the center here in terms of the damage output than on the ends. And we do have the Squigherd just spread across the back here, just wanting to sort of clump in, and of course with such a wide layout, able to sort of envelop and encircle the enemy as well if the opportunity presents itself. And in the center again, strengthening the center with the command structure. We've got both of the Goblin big bosses in here. We also have the Night Goblin war boss and the Night Goblin shaman, who will of course fall behind when they get closer and provide magical support across the lines. Meanwhile, all the way on the other side of the field, of course, we have the Empire sort of taking this hilltop over here. We've got the Great Swords forming the front line. Off to the side, we've got the Spearmen on either flank. These Silver Bullets here able to get some shots off from this gap and the Flagellants there to actually protect the Silver Bullets, I think. So they're able to go in and intercept any incoming charges. And we do also have the Empire Knights and Zintler's Reichsguard able to come in from the side, pushing for some rear charges or side charges, however necessary. The Jade Wizard back here able to provide magical support. Meanwhile, the General of the Empire already up in the air, up front, able to get some early damage in alongside the Steam Tank. Now, I was very quick with the deployment there because I do want to showcase a little bit of management advice over here. You'll see that Ninjahund has basically given a full charge order. I'm not sure if these guys were all locked in a group or if he selected and alt-clicked and dragged, but he's basically sent them all forward to charge in. And as we push forward, you'll see that as he's got the movement going already together, everyone's going in the right direction, you'll see he starts assigning targets. And this is a good sort of management tip. That way all your units are moving, they're headed towards their end destination, and then you start micromanaging and selecting appropriate targets as they get closer. That way you don't have clumping happening. I mean, you can still have some clumping happening, but it's a bit safer. Now, while we're pushing forward, and he still hasn't given those orders yet, I thought it happened a little bit earlier in the battle, you'll see the General of the Empire here does push forward to get some scouting done, just in case there are some Night Goblin archers or anything like that, so he will get some scouting done, and he's also able to get some early damage in, and I would actually have advised sending the General in to just poke a little bit at the Squigherd, get some damage done, because these guys are extremely threatening to the army composition that the Empire has here. So now would be a great time to dive in, especially since these are just Savage Orcs. They're not Savage Orc Biggins, these guys are, but these guys are just Savage Orcs, so could have just dove in there, done a little bit of damage, and then just left and kept sort of coming back and forth and causing a little bit of damage on this flank here. Meanwhile, let's see here. Still pushing forward. The General of the Empire does not yet engage, but he wants to come in for a side charge, and you'll see here these units are quickly being assigned their potential targets, or rather their ideal targets, and that way, again, as I was saying, just a good way to manage your actual engagement, make sure you don't get any clumping. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the General of the Empire decides to dive into the Savage Orcs instead of the Squigherd, and the Savage Orcs are a decent target, but really it's the Squigherd that should cause some concern. They, I believe, were nerfed relatively recently, But despite that, they can be pretty powerful when you've got so much infantry in your army. Meanwhile, you see the Empire here now forms up, kind of closes off the sides, pulls the steam tank back as well. Maybe try to get into some safety here because, of course, these guys are armor-piercing, so that is a little bit risky. Meanwhile, the Silver Bullets still have this gap here from which they can open fire, doing a lot of damage to the Squig Herd, actually, and causing them to waver. If they're able to get into the engagement, though, their abilities do kick in and will help them out, but they're taking just too much damage here. And the General of the Empire here as well, now hovering over, trying to provide some support to these spearmen, and also finally diving into the Squig Herd here. But you'll see the front lines now collapsing. You'll see the Squig Herd sort of pushing in, diving into whatever infantry they can, and doing a lot of damage almost instantaneously. Look at those spearmen drop, for example, and these Savage Orc Biggins as well, able to push through. And while the Empire Knights cause a lot of damage to the Squig Herd, the Savage Orc Biggins should have actually been pulled back to just get a surround on there and shut them down almost instantaneously. But you'll see otherwise, even as the Savage Orcs sort of dive in to provide support alongside the Squig Herd, they're going to get a lot of work done. Meanwhile, we do have over on this side over here on the left flank, as seen from the Greenskins, we've got Wah as well as Stand Your Ground going down. Again, trying to keep the Squig Herd active and engaged against the infantry, but also, of course, making sure a lot of more hits are going through and a lot fewer hits are coming through as well. The General of the Empire, you'll see, already having to pop a potion of toughness, but if that wavering turns into a shadow, the potion is nixed, and that's why it's a good idea to bring the potion of foolhardiness as well, just to buff out leadership while that is going down. So, good engagement over here. Unfortunately, that initial Squig Herd that had taken a lot of damage to begin with is on its way out. They will probably come back, though. We're hanging by that Stonehenge right now, but you'll see the Squig Herd are beginning to sort of rout. They're all shattering and pulling back, but not before they've done a lot of initial damage. Look at this unit of great swords here, these guys as well, with the Savage Orc Biggins coming in afterwards to follow through with a lot of extra heavy hitting, but the Squig Herd have done a lot of damage to start with. And meanwhile, over here, you'll see Itchy Nuisance does go down, reducing the effectiveness of these great swords and the steam tank as well, reducing the weapon damage and melee attack. You'll see the steam tank's melee attack is actually a mere 1 now, so it's only getting 10% of its hits through. So great cast there, basically negating the value of some very high value units there. And as we continue, you'll see this unit of great swords here has begun to surrender. They are pulling back, and over here the General of the Empire managed to get to the air, uses Earthblood as well to replenish those hit points, gets back to full health, half morale, but able to dive in and provide some support now. And you'll see over here these Squig Herd as well as these Savage Orc Biggins diving into Zinthler's Reichsguard from the side. Meanwhile, over here the Empire Knights pushing through these Savage Orcs, wanting to set up for a nice rear charge if possible. It's always a good idea to do that extra morale damage because morale is a tough point for the Greenskins. And you'll see over here as well, these Squig Herd are pulling back, and these Savage Orcs now being sent into this clump. And a great play here. You'll see the Empire Knights here were pulled back, most likely to set up for a charge, but the Squig Herd are being sent in to actually lock them in place. The Empire Knights can get a decent rear charge into all of these Savage Orcs and Savage Orc Biggins and cause a lot of damage, both physical and morale, but you'll see as they sort of turn around to get their charge through, these Squig Herd come in and hold a bunch of them in place. A handful, a mere handful managed to get through, but the rest of the Knights are held in place. Meanwhile, the Steam Tank over here does dive into these Savage Orcs and does a decent amount of damage there, both to morale and physically, but again, so that melee damage is quite helpful, of course. Now, over here, you'll see that left flank, as again seen from the Greenskins, very, very quickly taken care of. Those Squig Herd did come back ultimately. Now they're chomping away at some flagellants over here. Meanwhile, the Savage Orcs are making quick work of the Spearmen. Over here, the Squig Herd have given up under the attack of the Empire Knights, but they did just save this right flank from a great charge. Otherwise, the General over here does dive in, and his terror and fear does strike some of the hearts of these Savage Orcs. The Squig Herd, however, diving in as well to get some hurt into these great swords, while these Savage Orcs are terrified away. These Savage Orc Biggins as well making very quick work of these great swords. Again, Itchy Nuisance going down just to make sure that things like the Steam Tank and the great swords are not able to get too much damage through. Over here, you'll see as well these Silver Bullets opening shots off into the Savage Orcs and very quickly causing a lot of damage. And not only is the physical damage helping, but the morale drop, coupled with the General being there and causing terror, has caused them to be terrified. So again, just great spot there, pulling them off to the side here and opening those shots off, terrifying these guys right away. But the Savage Orc Biggins, after having made some pretty quick work of the Spearmen, not waiting for them to shatter anything, decide to come down towards the Silver Bullets, and that's a great call. These Spearmen are a pointless target. They're not going to get any hurt in for the most part, so it's much better to come in and shut down the Silver Bullets, and that's exactly what these Savage Orc Biggins want to do. So they'll quickly close that gap there, chase them down. A couple more shots do go off, but ultimately those hits come in, and the Silver Bullets are not going to stick around for much longer. Over here, you'll see as well the General of the Empire kind of getting bogged down between the Squig Herd, the poison from the Goblin Big Bosses, and of course the Night Goblin War Boss as well, getting a decent amount of damage in there. And now you'll see that health cap has almost been reached, and the Jade Wizard as well just having to keep safe so that he can get another cast off to try and keep these guys alive, but you'll see the General of the Empire has taken a lot of damage and ultimately causing him to waver, breaks and shatters, is now on his way out as all these Savage Orcs give chase. Savage Orcs and Savage Orc Biggins. You'll see over here the Flagellants are still alive, but it's much more important to pull all these units in from the Greenskins and take care of this clump of an engagement, because if this gets taken care of, there's nothing left to really worry about, as the General of the Empire as well is routing right now. Even if the General of the Empire comes back with no army to lead, the Savage Orc Biggins over here will make very quick work of the General. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see all of these units are winning their melees, but as if, you know, salt into the wound, we've got Itchy Nuisance going down once again, just again to make sure the steam tank can't get any damage through. A lot of that poison and the armor piercing coming in, surrounding the steam tank, getting a lot of damage through. General of the Empire does try to dive in and provide some support, tries to take out that Night Goblin Shaman, something you should try and do earlier rather than later, and there you have it, a close victory for the Greenskins. The Empire was just overpowered by the sheer size of the Greenskin army, and because of a reliance on infantry, the Squig Herd had an absolute picnic chomping away at the various Empire soldiers. It's possible that some early aggression could have helped. If the cavalry and the general kept poking and prodding at the Squig Herd clumps as they charged down the field, fewer of them may have remained for the final engagement, which the Empire would then be able to survive. Also, even though the steam tank could benefit from the Lore of Life support, and of course the General did as we saw, unless you've got a couple of units that are more likely to get the most benefit from it, the Light Wizard and his net of a Mintok can work wonders, especially if all of your anti-large is infantry based. You want to be able to pin down enemy large units so that you can go around them, reach them, and finally poke and prod at them with your spearmen. As always, guys, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I love seeing how different generals command their troops. We get some inventive builds all the time, we get some inventive strategies all the time, and it's nice to highlight some great battlefield play. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.